Welcome to the Long-Term Care Chronicles podcast. Much, Vince, for coming on to the Long-Term Care Chronicles. And before we start, can I have you just tell the listeners about yourself?
Yes, my name is Vince. I am a quadriplegic due to gun violence, and I have been living inside a long-term nursing care since 2012. And I'm from New York, Newburgh, New York, actually.
Okay, perfect. And thank you so much for that. And your Rehabilitation and Nursing Center, which is on Roosevelt Island within New York City, within the New York State, would you be able to tell the listeners what your life was like before the pandemic as to what a typical day would be like for you?
Yeah, typical day before the pandemic. I would get up. We was able to leave on pass any day out the week, as long as we was back before 9 p.m.
Yeah.
And if something happened, of course, you can call and let them know when you'll be back. And
Yeah.
yeah, I would go see my family. I would just be out all day and just enjoying life.
And this is, thank you so much for that. And this is a 500 bed facility, so quite a large facility. And what was it like during the first month of the lockdown when the pandemic hit and when this was announced?
Oh man, first month of the lockdown, it seemed like it was unreal. Like you never thought nothing like this had happened, and within the first month, you see a lot of people getting sick and them not separating the sick from the non-sick,
Yeah.
to which a lot of people got sick that didn't have to.
And so what was that particular thing like when you, like for yourself in your room, was there others that were in your room and they became sick with COVID-19? How was that for you?
Yes, my roommate actually caught it, and it was scary because you don't know if you was going to catch it, and then you start seeing my roommate survived it, but a lot of other ones that is actually on my unit passed away.
My gosh, my goodness, that's definitely hard. How do you go through something like that mentally wise? Like how do you process everything?
Um, I guess just stay positive and pray and just hope that if you do catch it, that you survive it. Because it was like, all right, they're not separating people. A lot of they wasn't really testing at that time, but people was catching it when they're catching fevers and can't breathe and on oxygen, and they were sending them out to the hospitals at the last minute because the hospitals was full. So yeah, like it just caused a lot of headache and frustration, and just had to stay strong and just keep your mind, try to keep your mind off of it, but it was very hard for that.
Yes. And then after, while the pandemic was going on, you mentioned that there wasn't in the first month or so testing. Did that eventually come about where they would test residents, and what was the procedure for that?
Yes, when they finally tested residents, I can say we were about 2.5 months into the quarantine, and they would come through. They was only testing people with symptoms, so they would swab them, and then it seemed like everybody that they swab was positive. Then at that time, they still wouldn't separate people.
Well, that's kind of, as I said, a very precarious situation. And then what would happen? I know that, with staff, how was that working out in terms of, were there a lot of staff? Were there, shortages that you experienced? Like, how was it that residents were being cared for during this time as well?
Yeah, they was very short staffed. Thank God they had started like having travel nurses because they did well they say they built another part of built onto the hospital. If you ask them this, what they would tell you to bring COVID patients from the outside into the nursing home, which they totally lied about that. I mean, they was one floor above me, and then on the other side of the hospital, they was over there also. But they had a lot of agency nurses that came to help from different states. And
And was that, did that make a full staff available to have those outside sources come in?
it didn't make it a full staff, but they made it very helpful because they was polite. They was willing to help you with anything you needed. So they made it a little more comfortable than it was, but it didn't. I wouldn't say fill the staff.
Yeah. And then, there was the lockdown. It happened for, in your case, it was a year. Is that correct?
Yes, it was a little over a year.
Okay.
I say a year and like 2 months. I mean,
Oh,
we're just
wow.
yeah. This week is they just started letting a few like vaccinated residents go outside on their own and able to get a pass.
And that is just on the facility itself, just on the grounds, but not going out into the city. Is that correct?
No, if you're vaccinated, they allow you to get a pass until 9 p.m. to where you can go into the city. Like this just
Okay.
started this week, but so it's not too many residents they're really letting out at one time. They're just going slowly.
Okay. And then during that whole year and almost a little over a year, did you have much communication with your family during the time?
By phone or FaceTime. That's it.
And were they, provided updates as to what was happening at Kohler, or there was just none, only when they talked with yourself?
Nah, it was a little bit of wasn't much of communication between residents and administration or people's families.
Okay. And I think so during this, the pandemic, you created this group, Nursing Home Lives Matter. And why did you feel it was important that these facilities, that residents and staff member have their voices heard and be recognized?
Yeah, because it's like the whole time we were speaking up about what was going on, why aren't you separating us? Why are y'all being told that treat everyone as if they had it? And it's like it was wrong. Like, and then we were complaining about certain things, and no one was paying attention, no one was listening until some travel nurses went to the newspaper and spoke on situations that was going on, and then that's when they want to start separating people. And but we've been speaking this whole time, and no one was doing anything, and I felt like it had to stop. Like the way they treat residents in nursing homes, period. Like they have no voice. Like it's their last stop. Like coming to a nursing home is their last stop, so they have no rights. They have no voice. I feel like it just needed to be spoke on and needed to be stopped.
Yes, exactly. And can you just talk a little bit more on other items that they didn't recognize? Like, what did you bring up to the attention of the administrators that they just did not listen?
Yeah, about short staffing and the PPE shortage of PPE. Yeah, and just the simple fact of people was catching it and it didn't have to. All you had to do was separate people. But like they're treating us like secondhand citizens. You know, like Like we have no right. It's just wrong.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you. And then what have you been doing in terms of protesting to get the message out during this time?
Yes, I've been reaching out to newspapers, the news. Um, we had our first protest we actually had in front of the hospital, demanding that they don't bring COVID patients back into the hospital, the nursing home. Like, why would you bring COVID patients into a place where there's already nothing but vulnerable people?
Yeah.
And that I can say they it became like on the news and everything, that protest, and they the H&H that's in charge of the nursing home, like it's in charge of a few long-term nursing homes in New York City plus some hospitals. They came up with a statement that they weren't going to do it after that. And then another like gathering we had was a visual, because I felt like all the people that died inside this nursing home and other nursing homes, they weren't, they like they names weren't respected, like they wasn't honored in the right way.
Yeah.
We had we had a twilight visual, which a few like Congressman Maloney, Congresswoman Maloney, she came out and spoke. The Manhattan Borough President came out and spoke, and the community has been a great help this whole
Yes.
year by advocating for us and helping us advocate.
Thank you. And you mentioned as well the fact that there was transfers from hospital to Kohler. Is that correct? And that it took the media attention for that to stop.
Yeah, yeah, because when they was first talking about doing it, we wrote a letter to the mayor's office, and they said they wasn't bringing COVID patients. They were sending patients that wasn't positive to free up beds for COVID patients, which that became a lie. Because it was 100, they brought in 100 and I think like 20 residents from the hospital that was positive, and they lied about the death count inside nursing home. Like at the time, they were saying it was only 6 people that died inside it, and I can count 10 on my unit alone, not
Wow.
even including these units. And he had 2 refrigerated trucks out back. So how could you say only 6 people died?
Wow. That's, yeah, to that type of misinformation is just not good. And you're right to respect the lives that have lived. And you mentioned that you had the Twilight Visual back in March of this year. Can you speak a little bit more to that, please?
Yes, we had the Twilight visual. I had to go above and beyond just to get us to be able to attend. A few of us to be able to attend just to go out front of the building. And so they agreed. They let us go out, and we did the Twilight visual. Like I said, a few congresswomen spoke. The Manhattan Borough's president spoke, who has been supporting us this whole time,
Yeah.
like supplying us with PPE and everything. And after the visual, we did a walk around on the side of the hospital and did like a lighting on the building that basically had the isolation kills and nursing home lives matter, like a big spotlight we put on
Yeah.
the building. And it was a nice turnout, better than I thought it would be. And yeah, and with our work, we it didn't happen right away.
Yes.
But our voices was finally starting to be heard.
No, and that's great that it was a good turnout and well supported by your elected officials. And so, what are you now working towards to further get that message out?
Yeah, right now we're working on the way they quarantine us, the way DOH doesn't follow CDC guidelines. CDC will come out with a guideline that's pertaining to a nursing home, and it takes a while for DOH to even follow that guideline. And the way they're locking these units down, like if a nurse tests positive, they lock the whole unit down, and it's nothing but nurses testing positive here, and a lot of them are refusing to take the vaccine, and it's like it falls on us because now they just now changed the visitation guidelines.
Yeah.
But before, the facility had to go 14 days, and they never reached that point. It can be the 13th day, and somebody will test positive, and it started all over. A whole year, we wasn't able to see our families or nothing.
Yes.
It's because nurses was testing positive. It wasn't the residents because we weren't going anywhere. If a resident got affected, it had to be from a nurse. And
Exactly. And you said that, so basically every resident right now at Kohler has been vaccinated.
I say, out of I think 500 residents, I think they said it's on I forgot the rating, but a lot of them is vaccinated.
So a good majority has been vaccinated. And so you were mentioning that if a staff member tested positive, you guys were then locked down for 14 days. And if during that 14 days, another staff member, it restarted again for the 14 days. Is that correct?
Correct.
Wow. Wow. So, I mean, I know you can't really speak to, the staff as to, why they're not all vaccinated, but it does pose a lot of problems. Is that one of the things that you are now talking towards to bring attention towards?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I can imagine because if you're, so right now, does you said that your family, are they able to come on into the building and visit, or it's just an outside, or you go and visit?
But right now, since the guidelines have changed, you can have a visit at any time.
What can our listeners do to support your group in your initiatives that you have ongoing?
Follow us. Follow us
Mhm.
on the Instagram. Follow the website to always see what type of events we're doing around Nursing Home Lives Matter, and just help us continue to advocate. And we're actually in the works of making a documentary called
Yes.
Fire Through Dry Grass. It's a documentary of basically what we went through for that whole year, and that's
You want to say about your group, and just so further let our listeners know as to what is going on?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Is there anything else that you wanted our listeners to know?
Um, yes, basically, nursing home lives matter, and we're not going to give up until we treat it with respect. And not only in this nursing homes all over the country,
Yeah.
all the same thing, and that's what we're fighting for.
Perfect. So I just wanted to thank you, Vince, for coming on to the Long-Term Care Chronicles and sharing your story. And again, just wanted to thank you for your time. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.